It was hard. It's hard every time I come, but just hearing from out of their mouths, what took place and how things could have been, we could have had a different outcome had somebody just said something.
Right now, you're looking at 7 people facing murder charges in the death of 20-year-old Mahogany Jackson in Birmingham. Police say they now know Jackson was the victim of a kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder.
On the early morning of February 25th, 2024, a mother in Birmingham, Alabama received this text message from her 20-year-old daughter, Mahogany Jackson. The message included a location pin and a desperate plea for help. But there was something terrifying about it. Mahogany didn't ask her mother to call. She couldn't risk the sound of a phone ringing. She was trapped, and her captors were watching. When police rushed to the apartment, it was empty. Mahogany was already gone. What her mother didn't know was that her daughter had been beaten, tortured, and sexually assaulted for hours by people she once called friends. And they filmed everything. They shared the videos online while Mahogany fought for her life. Within 48 hours, her body would be found on the side of a road, and 8 people would be arrested for her murder. Welcome to Shadows of Crime. Before we go deeper into what led to this unimaginable tragedy, I need your help. If stories like Mahogany's matter to you, stories that demand justice and awareness, hit that like button right now. And drop a comment telling me, what state or country are you watching from? Let's build a community that refuses to stay silent. Now, let me tell you who Mahogany Jackson really was. Mahogany Jaquise Jackson was born and raised in Jasper, Alabama. She came from humble beginnings, the kind where you learn early that nothing comes easy and nobody hands you success. But Mahogany wasn't the type to sit around waiting for life to get better. She was a builder. She was a fighter. And by her late teens, she made a decision that would change everything. She left Jasper and moved to Birmingham, looking for a fresh start in a bigger city with bigger opportunities. By the time she was just 20 years old, Mahogany had already done what most people only dream about. She opened her own hair salon. She wasn't working for someone else. She wasn't renting a chair in somebody's shop. She owned her business, and it wasn't just about making money. Her salon was a place where women in her community could come to feel beautiful, confident, and seen. She offered affordable services because she understood what it was like to struggle. Her clients didn't just respect her skills, they respected her hustle. But Mahogany wasn't just a business owner. She was also a mother. She had a young daughter who she loved more than anything in the world. Every single day, she balanced appointments, bills, marketing, and all the behind-the-scenes work that nobody ever sees. She posted on social media. She built her brand. She showed up for her clients and her child with the kind of grace that left people talking. Her friends admired her strength. Her clients trusted her, and her daughter looked up to her. Mahogany was the kind of woman who didn't wait for opportunities. She created them. But there was one thing about Mahogany that some people saw as a strength and others saw as a weakness. She was loyal, almost too loyal. She kept doors open for people who had already burned bridges, old friends from Jasper, former roommates, people she had grown up with. Some of them had criminal records. Some of them had reputations. Some of them had already shown her exactly who they were. But Mahogany believed in second chances. She believed people could change if you gave them time and loyalty. So even though she was building a future, even though she had clients, followers, and a daughter depending on her, Mahogany still entertained voices from her past. She replied to their messages. She hung out when they asked. She showed up when they needed her, because that's who she was. She didn't give up on people. But loyalty only works when it goes both ways. And the people Mahogany trusted were not the people she thought they were. Some people don't change. Some people just wait for the right moment to strike. And for Mahogany Jackson, that moment was coming fast. The very people she refused to give up on were about to take everything from her. Mahogany Jackson didn't run in elite circles. Her world wasn't filled with strangers from the internet or people she barely knew. The people around her were familiar, former roommates, childhood friends from Jasper, people from the block, people she had known for years. Some of them had grown with her, but some of them hadn't grown at all. These were the ones still stuck in the same cycles Mahogany had worked so hard to escape. Criminal records, constant drama, unstable situations. On again, off again fights that blurred the line between friendship and rivalry. And while Mahogany was building her salon, raising her daughter, and chasing her dreams, something ugly was growing in the background. Jealousy. It didn't announce itself. It simmered quietly. It disguised itself as sarcasm, passive comments, and eye rolls. It showed up in group chats, where people talked behind her back. Screenshots would later reveal the cracks forming, accusations that she thought she was better than everybody, petty rumors about her parenting, jabs at her success. Some accused her of changing. Others resented the fact that she was doing more than just surviving. The tension kept building, and then came the spark, a stolen firearm. According to sources close to the case, Mahogany believed that someone in her circle, someone she trusted, had stolen a gun that was registered in her name. Now, she could have ignored it. She could have stayed quiet and let it go. But Mahogany wasn't the type to stay quiet, and she had a good reason to speak up. What if someone used that gun to commit a crime? It would come back to her. Her name, her record, her future. She couldn't let that happen. So she confronted them, face to face. No filter. No softness, just the truth. And that confrontation didn't go over well. The group, already fractured by jealousy and ego, now had a common enemy. In their twisted logic, Mahogany wasn't the victim of theft. She was the problem. And what happened next wasn't an emotional outburst or a fight that got out of hand. It was planned. Phone records and messages later revealed that conversations had been happening behind her back. Plans were forming. People were talking. And Mahogany had no idea. She thought she was walking into a conversation, a chance to clear the air, a chance to resolve the tension and set the record straight. She thought these were still her friends, people she had shared space with, people she had laughed with, people she had defended. But she wasn't walking into a conversation. She was walking into a trap. And the people laying that trap weren't strangers in masks. They were people whose names were saved in her phone. People she had trusted. People she had refused to give up on. But loyalty only matters when it's mutual. And Mahogany Jackson was the only one still being loyal. February 24th, 2024 started like any other evening for Mahogany Jackson. She left her home expecting to have a conversation, a chance to clear the air, a chance to resolve the tension that had been building among people she still considered friends. She was headed to Serenity Apartments in the Powderly neighborhood of Birmingham. Unit 3. The name Serenity would prove to be painfully ironic. This wasn't some back alley or a place she feared. This was a familiar location, a unit she had visited before. A place tied to people she had known for years, people who had once shared her space, her food, her trust. The plan was simple. Sit down. Talk things out. Set the record straight about the stolen gun and whatever bad blood was floating around. But what Mahogany didn't know was that she wasn't walking into a conversation. She was walking into a setup. From the moment she stepped inside Unit 3, everything changed. The door locked behind her. Her phone was seized almost immediately. There were no warm greetings, no explanations, no room for escape. She was restrained by force, and the betrayal she must have felt in that moment is something no words can truly capture. This wasn't an emotional outburst. This wasn't a fight that got out of hand. It was organized. It was deliberate. It was cruel. Over the next several hours, Mahogany was subjected to a level of torture that can only be described as evil. At the first location, Brandon Pope's home in Birmingham's West End community, Mahogany was beaten outside while she was naked. She was stomped on. She was kicked repeatedly. She was dragged by her hair across the ground. Witnesses would later testify that she was thrown into the trunk of a car while suspects laughed and recorded everything. Then she was moved to a second location. There, she was handcuffed. She was pistol whipped. She was sexually assaulted at gunpoint. She was spat on. She was mocked. She was humiliated in ways that no human being should ever endure. And through it all, the cameras rolled. Multiple suspects used their phones to film the torture. They didn't hide their faces. They didn't mute their voices. They didn't blur out her cries for help. Some of them gave directions. Others laughed in the background. Some stood by silently, doing nothing. But make no mistake, silence was complicity. This wasn't a single act of rage. It was a group event. Shared, encouraged, even celebrated. And then the videos started spreading. Not on some hidden corner of the internet, not buried in encrypted files, but on Facebook, in direct messages, in group chats, even on Reddit. Mahogany's torture became content. Her pain became entertainment for people who smiled in her presence. People who had posted emojis on her photos. People who had once shared her couch. As the hours dragged on, Mahogany was moved from one location to another. The abuse didn't end. It evolved. Different settings, different attackers, same horror. And then, somehow, against all odds, Mahogany found a sliver of opportunity. Maybe someone looked away. Maybe a phone was left unlocked. Maybe in a moment of chaos, she reached for a device that wasn't meant for her. Whatever the opening was, she took it. In the early hours of February 25th, Mahogany sent a message to her mother. "Send the police. Apartment 3. Held hostage. Don't call." She dropped a location pin. She knew a phone call could get her killed, so she whispered a digital SOS instead. It was strategic. It was silent. It was hope. Her mother, Gail Maddox, got the message and immediately called 911. Police were dispatched right away. Officers rushed to Serenity Apartments, Unit 3, ready to rescue Mahogany. But when they arrived, the apartment was empty. Mahogany was already gone. Her captors had discovered the message she sent. Or maybe her screams had gotten too loud. Either way, they acted fast. Investigators believe that after finding out she had used her phone, the suspects threatened her life. They told her that if she gave them her passcode, they would let her live. It was a lie. Mahogany gave them the passcode, hoping it would buy her time, hoping the police would find her, hoping someone, anyone, would stop this nightmare. But instead, they moved her. They took her away from the apartment before police could arrive. And by the time officers stepped into the unit she had desperately flagged, she was already being transported to her final destination. The apartment was empty, but the videos were everywhere, and the worst was still to come. What happened to Mahogany is beyond comprehension. And what makes it even more disturbing is that her attackers didn't hide what they did. They filmed it. They shared it. They celebrated it. If you believe cases like this deserve maximum punishment, let me know in the comments. Do you think all 8 suspects deserve the death penalty? And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications. We cover cases that demand justice, and your support helps us reach more people. Now, let me tell you what happened next. It was 2:19 a.m. on February 26th, 2024, when a witness made a discovery that would shake the city of Birmingham to its core. The witness was driving near 17th Street Southwest and Laurel Avenue when they noticed something on the side of the road. At first, it looked like debris. Trash. Maybe an old mattress someone had dumped illegally. But as they got closer, they realized it was something far worse. It was a body. The witness immediately called 911. Officers from the Birmingham Police Department's South Precinct arrived on the scene within minutes. When they approached, they found Mahogany Jackson lying face down on the side of the road. She had been shot execution style in the back of the head. Her body was covered by mattresses and other debris, discarded like trash at an illegal dump site that locals had long referred to as Dead Man's Road. The location was isolated, tucked away in a remote area about 2.5 miles from the apartment, where Mahogany had sent her desperate text message to her mother. Birmingham Fire and Rescue Services arrived shortly after and pronounced Mahogany deceased at the scene. The preliminary investigation revealed the horrifying truth. Mahogany had not only been shot, she had suffered extensive blunt force trauma. Her face, torso, and limbs were covered in bruises and cuts. Her injuries were consistent with being restrained. Her wrists and ankles showed marks from pressure and binding. Forensic teams secured the scene and began collecting evidence. What they found was damning. DNA was recovered from Mahogany's body, linking multiple suspects directly to the crime. Tire tracks at the scene matched a vehicle that had been used by one of the accused. Ballistics experts examined the bullet that was lodged in Mahogany's skull and matched it to a gun tied to one of the suspects. The physical evidence also confirmed what the videos had already shown. Mahogany had been sexually assaulted. The trauma was undeniable. The cruelty was unforgivable. But perhaps the most heartbreaking detail of all was the timeline. Investigators determined that Mahogany had been killed just minutes before her body was found. The witness who discovered her had arrived almost immediately after she was left there. If police had reached the apartment even slightly sooner, if the suspects had hesitated for just a few more moments, if anything had gone differently, maybe Mahogany would still be alive. But time had run out. Her captors had moved quickly. They had executed her and dumped her body in a place where they thought she wouldn't be found right away. They wanted to buy themselves time to escape, time to cover their tracks, time to get away with murder. But they failed, because between the digital trail they left behind, the physical wounds on Mahogany's body, and the forensic evidence at the scene, her killers had left behind everything prosecutors would need to bring them to justice. Mahogany's suffering had been documented, her torture had been filmed, her final moments had been recorded. But now, so was the truth, and the Birmingham Police Department was about to move faster than anyone expected. The Birmingham Police Department didn't waste any time. Within 48 hours of discovering Mahogany Jackson's body, detectives had arrested 7 suspects. An 8th suspect was arrested on March 1st, 2024. How did they move so fast? 2 things: community tips and digital forensics. The videos that the suspects thought made them untouchable became the evidence that sealed their fate. Every clip, every angle, every frame, detectives collected them all. They analyzed them in slow motion. They matched voices. They mapped backgrounds. They counted faces. They built a timeline moment by moment of Mahogany's final hours. And one by one, the suspects were identified. On February 28, 2024, Birmingham police detectives presented their case to the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office. After reviewing the evidence, arrest warrants were issued for all 8 suspects. Let me tell you who they are. Brandon Pope, 24 years old at the time of his arrest, from Birmingham, Alabama. Investigators say Pope hosted the initial beating at his home in the West End community. Mahogany was beaten outside while naked. She was stomped on, kicked, and dragged by her hair. Pope then drove the vehicle with Mahogany locked in the trunk. He later told detectives he heard a single gunshot, but claimed he didn't know who fired the weapon. Francis Harris, 25 years old, from Birmingham, Alabama. Investigators believe Harris fired the fatal shot that killed Mahogany. He was charged with capital murder during first-degree kidnapping and capital murder during first-degree sodomy. Jeremiah McDowell, 18 years old at the time of his arrest, from Bessemer, Alabama. McDowell was present during the shooting. He was also charged with capital murder during first-degree kidnapping and capital murder during first-degree sodomy. Giovanni Clapp, 23 years old, from Birmingham, Alabama. Clapp was charged with felony murder, first-degree kidnapping, first-degree sodomy, and second-degree assault with injury. Her assault charge was later reduced to third-degree assault. Blair Green, 25 years old, from Birmingham, Alabama. Green was charged with felony murder, first-degree kidnapping, and first-degree sodomy. Sania McCall, 23 years old, from Bessemer, Alabama. McCall was charged with felony murder, first-degree kidnapping, and first-degree sodomy. Taja Lewis, 25 years old, from Birmingham, Alabama. Lewis was charged with felony murder and second-degree assault with injury or weapon. Ariana Lachey Robinson, 23 years old, from Birmingham, Alabama. Robinson told investigators she arrived after the assault and offered to take Mahogany home. She said others refused after learning that Mahogany had shared her location with her family. Robinson claimed she later saw Mahogany leave with several other suspects and never saw her again. She was charged with felony murder during kidnapping. Initially, 3 suspects, Pope, Harris, and McDowell, were charged with capital murder. The other 5 were charged with felony murder. But in September 2024, a grand jury upgraded all charges to capital murder for every single suspect. The Jefferson County District Attorney's Office announced that the state would be seeking the death penalty for all 8 defendants. All 8 suspects pleaded not guilty. All 8 were denied bond and remain in the Jefferson County Jail. At a press conference on February 28th, Birmingham Police Chief Scott Thurmond addressed the media. He called the case deplorable and sickening. He said, "This is undoubtedly one of the most heinous acts I've seen in my career. It's absolutely disgusting." District Attorney Danny Carr also spoke to the press. He said, "This will be a long road to justice." But the message was clear. The Birmingham Police Department and the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office were not going to let Mahogany Jackson's killers walk free. After the news cameras left, after the headlines faded, and after the arrests were made, what remained was grief. Mahogany Jackson was buried quietly by her family. No large funeral, no press conference, just pain. Her daughter, still a child, is now being raised by extended family. A little girl too young to fully understand what was taken from her and far too young to understand why. Mahogany's mother, Gail Maddox, has attended every single court hearing. She sits in the courtroom and listens as prosecutors read out the details of what happened to her daughter. She hears the testimony. She watches the suspects, and every time it breaks her all over again. In an interview, Gail said, "It's hard every time I come, just hearing from their mouths what took place."
It was hard. It's hard every time I come, but just hearing from out of their mouths, what took place and how things could have been, we could have had a different outcome had somebody just said something.
But she keeps showing up because Mahogany deserves a voice, and Gail refuses to let her daughter be forgotten. The hardest part, Gail says, is watching her granddaughter grow up without her mother. The little girl told her grandmother, "I just miss my mama so much." On Halloween 2024, the pain became even sharper. Gail took her granddaughter trick-or-treating, and the little girl saw all the other kids walking around with their moms. She looked up at her grandmother and said, I love you. But I want my mama. Gail said it tore her heart up. The salon that Mahogany built from the ground up is now shuttered and empty. The mirrors still hang on the walls. The chairs still stand in their places. But the light is gone. The laughter is gone. The dreams are gone. On February 29, 2024, members of the community gathered outside Serenity Apartments, the place where Mahogany was last seen alive. They held a candlelit vigil in her honor. Pink balloons, Mahogany's favorite color, were released into the sky as people said her name and prayed for her family. But even in mourning, there was another wound that kept reopening. The videos. The ones that captured Mahogany's torture, her screams, her humiliation. They continued to circulate on social media, in group chats, on forums. And every time they resurfaced, Gail had to relive her daughter's final moments all over again. Gail begged the public to stop sharing them. She called the videos dehumanizing. She said it felt like a second death. When asked about the state's decision to seek the death penalty for all 8 suspects, Gail didn't hesitate. She said, "I am in agreement with it, because they showed my daughter no mercy. They laughed when they were torturing her. She didn't have a judge nor jury. The world would be better without them. Justice for Mahogany. Gail Maddox will never get her daughter back. Mahogany's daughter will never get her mother back. The salon will never reopen. The dreams will never be fulfilled. But Gail is determined to see justice served, and she will keep showing up to every court hearing until it is. Mahogany Jackson's story is heartbreaking. But if we're going to honor her memory, we have to ask ourselves, what can we learn from this tragedy? How can we prevent something like this from happening again? First, trust your instincts over loyalty. Mahogany's loyalty to toxic people cost her life. She kept doors open for people who had already shown her who they were. She believed in second chances, even when the warning signs were there. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. You don't owe anyone your safety. You don't owe anyone your life. Second, understand digital SOS strategies. Mahogany's text message to her mother saved the investigation. It gave police a location. It gave them a timeline. But it also alerted her captors. They found out she had used her phone, and that's when things got worse. If you are ever in danger, consider using emergency location sharing apps that work silently in the background. Apps like Life 360 or Find My iPhone can share your location with trusted contacts without alerting anyone nearby. Silent alerts can save lives. Third, bystander accountability matters. Several suspects in this case stood by and did nothing while Mahogany was tortured. They didn't participate directly, but they didn't stop it either. And under Alabama law, that silence made them just as guilty. Silence is complicity. If you see something, say something. Report early. Speak up. You could be the difference between life and death. Fourth, community and police partnerships work. Tips from the public helped solve this case in 48 hours. The Birmingham Police Department thanked the community for sharing information that led to the arrests. When communities and law enforcement work together, justice moves faster. Fifth, digital ethics and platform responsibility. The videos of Mahogany's torture spread like wildfire on Facebook, Reddit, and in direct messages. Social media companies must do more to prevent viral violence. Algorithms that promote engagement should not promote brutality. Platforms need better reporting systems, faster response times, and stricter consequences for users who share violent content. Sixth, know when to distance yourself. Jealousy, resentment, and toxic group dynamics are warning signs. If people in your circle are constantly tearing you down, making passive-aggressive comments, or talking behind your back, it's time to create distance. Your peace is more important than their approval. And finally, we have to ask the bigger question. What turns a group of friends into executioners, and why did no one stop it? Group mentality can be dangerous. When everyone around you is participating in something wrong, it becomes easier to justify your own actions. But that doesn't make it right. And it doesn't make you any less guilty. Mahogany Jackson trusted the wrong people. She believed in loyalty. She believed in second chances. And it cost her everything. Don't let loyalty blind you. Don't let silence make you complicit. And don't ever ignore the warning signs. Mahogany Jackson was a young mother, a business owner, a woman chasing her dreams. She trusted the wrong people, and they took everything from her. If this story moved you, if you believe her memory deserves to be honored, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment below and tell me, what do you think should happen to all 8 suspects? Should they all face the death penalty? I want to hear your thoughts, and if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications. We post new true crime stories every single day, cases that demand justice and awareness. Your support helps us reach more people and keep these stories alive. Mahogany's daughter will grow up without her mother. Her salon will never reopen, but her story will not be forgotten. Justice for Mahogany.